As Pravrajika Brahmarpana said, my topic now and for all of today, as far as my part of the presentation goes, is Sarada Devi, Sri Sarada Devi, the Holy Mother, and her Advaita. So probably all of you know who Sri Sarada Devi was, the one we call Holy Mother. So I'm not going to tell her life, describe her life, but most people are not used to hearing Holy Mother spoken of in the context of Advaita, non-dualism. And so I want to make a case for that today. I spoke yesterday about the Devi Suktam and Vagambhrini, who is the Rishi or Rishika, to use the feminine Sanskrit form of Rishi, who spoke the Devi Suktam, a hymn said to be the first expression, first historical expression of the full non-dualistic realization. And so it's not hard to make a case for that being Advaita. The great Sayanacharya, the commentator on the Vedas, himself accepted it as a statement of Advaitic realization, and many others have as well. So no case really needed to be made for it. And then Madalasa's lullaby, that also no case needs to be made. Her statement of Advaita is much more traditional than the Devi Suktam is. And so again, there it's a clear statement of the highest Advaita that she was teaching to her 4 sons. That has been accepted in the tradition and has been quoted by many, many great Advaitins. So again, no case needs to be made there. They were Advaitins, they spoke Advaita, that's accepted. Holy Mother, however, I have never seen her mentioned in the context of being an Advaitin or teaching Advaita. So yesterday I tried to show that Vagambhrini was an Advaitin in the mold of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Krishna in the Gita. An unusual expression of Advaita, but widely accepted as an expression. And so I presented her Devi Suktam to show the uniqueness of her expression as a woman and as the first person to experience her identity with infinite reality. And then Madalasa, as I said, was a more traditional Advaitin, more traditional in her expression. And yet the way she, the context in which she presented it was unique and had much to do with the fact that she was a woman, she was a mother, and she taught Advaita to her children. And so both of them were women sages who attained to non-dual illumination, but each of them had a unique contribution to make. And today I want to show again that Holy Mother was not only an Advaitin, but that she taught Advaita sadhana, Advaita spiritual practice. And she did it in a way, she expressed Advaita in a way, and taught the practice of Advaita in a unique way that is her unique contribution, a great contribution. Something that is unique can be interesting because it's unique, but it is of very limited usefulness because it is so unique. A special case that doesn't apply widely. But in the case of the Holy Mother, her teaching was universal. And so it's unique in the sense that it was a unique expression, an expression of Advaita unique to her and her form of spirituality. But it is universal in its application. So, Holy Mother. As has often been observed, Sri Ramakrishna's life is full of dramatic appeal. He goes into ecstasy, into high states of consciousness over and over again during the course of a single day. He's dancing sometimes, he's singing at times, He's joking with his disciples, and at other times he's completely still with no breathing, no blinking of the eyes, immersed in Nirvikalpa Samadhi or in Bhava Samadhi, a devotional form of Samadhi. And so Sri Ramakrishna's life would be, with the proper director and extraordinary actors, would be rich material for dramatic performance in cinema or in theater, because it is so full of extraordinary happenings. His spiritual practices, extraordinary spiritual practices, even the people that he met, the people that came to him, his teachers, his interactions with his teachers, and again, his daily ecstasies and so forth. So he was a person of mythic proportions. When we come to Swami Vivekananda, we find the same, a person whose life was full of dramatic appeal. Again, with the right director and actors, his life would be a rich source of material for the theater or for the cinema, because of his world travels, as with Sri Ramakrishna, the extraordinary people that he met with, interacted with. In the case of Swami Vivekananda, because of the tremendous struggles he had to go through, the tremendous obstacles he had to face in order to spread Sri Ramakrishna's ideas. So both of them, their lives are very dramatic and full of mythic elements, which make for grand storytelling. So Holy Mother, on the contrary, her life seems so quiet. Life is extraordinarily quiet. I think of her in various ways, and as I was thinking of what to say for today, the image that came to mind, perhaps because I'm in France now, where it gets cold, not yet too cold, but it gets cold. I was thinking of her as a blanket of snow, the first blanket of snow that covers the earth. It brings quiet, it brings tranquility to the earth. It softens everything, it softens sounds. It softens edges as it spreads over the various contours that it meets. It softens everything. Mother's life was a life of tranquility, a life of extraordinary love, extraordinary simplicity. In fact, that's one of the great appeals of her life, the extraordinary simplicity of her life, her wonderful purity, and the quality of her life. When we read about her, when we think about her, when we pray to her, meditate on her, she softens all of the hard edges of our life, like the blanket of snow that covers, the first blanket of pure snow that covers the earth in the early winter. But that doesn't make for great theater and movies. But there also, the correct person could make an extraordinary movie of her life, because as we get closer to her, we find the tremendous power of transformation that she contained. Her life was her life was like her being was like the philosopher's stone, which turned coarse metal into gold. The tremendous power that she had to transform, the tremendous power that she had to illuminate, to illuminate those who came to her. And she continues that work today, illuminating us. I wanted to show you, where did I put them? Here they are, 2 books, which I highly recommend, because there are a number of books out on the Holy Mother in English now, but the one I'm going to show in English, The Reminiscences of Sri Sarada Devi, which is available from the Advaita Ashrama. It's an extraordinary book. It gives the reminiscences of a number of people, monastics and lay people, but reminiscences which show sides of the Holy Mother which are not there in her biographies. And so it's a wonderful book that I recommend to everyone interested in her life. The other is, if you know Bengali, this Sri Sri Maya Paraprante. It's in, at least I have 4 volumes of it. This is the first volume, Pratham Kanda. And I have 4. I don't know if there are more, but at least there are 4 because I have them here with me. This also is even more extraordinary than the English book because it's in 4 volumes and it contains many reminiscences not in the English translation. And there, as we begin to delve into the reminiscences of Holy Mother's life, we see the influence she had on people. As I said, the tremendous power of transformation, where people just on first sight of Holy Mother, sometimes their lives were changed forever. The power of illumination. So her life, though not dramatic like Sri Ramakrishna's life or Swami Vivekananda's life, it has quiet drama to it and tremendous appeal because she really was the embodiment of love, the embodiment of universal, all-accepting love, the ideal, the Indian ideal of the mother's love, but taken to a transcendent degree. So it's about her Advaita that I want to speak today. So again, her Advaita, was she an Advaitin? And that there are 2 parts to the question, was she a non-dualist? One part is, did she have the experience of Advaita? And the second part is, did she teach Advaita? So was she an Advaitin in her experience? And then did she teach it to others? So dealing with the first, was she an Advaitin in her experience? Those who look on the Holy Mother as the manifestation of the Divine Mother herself, an incarnation, an avatara of the Divine Mother herself, they will say, well, what a stupid question. Of course she was an Advaitin because she was the Divine Mother and she knew everything. She was not only an Advaita, she not only had the knowledge of Advaita, being God herself, but she is the key holder to the experience of Advaita. We propitiate her, we pray to her to open the door to non-dualistic experience. So obviously, as the Divine Mother, she had the experience. That is good. And I don't argue with the point, except to say that that is a faith-based answer. Good for those who have faith, useless for those who don't already have that faith. And so we need something more than that. If not for a particular individual who has that faith that she was the Divine Mother herself, at least for the sake of discussing with others. And so did she have the Advaitic experience, aside from the fact that whether she was the Divine Mother or whether she was an incarnation or was not? Well, there are recorded instances. Her close attendants like Golap Ma and Yogin Ma saw her a number of times in deep, profound samadhi, where there was no body consciousness at all. There was no awareness of the world, no awareness of her body. Now, they didn't say that Mother was at that time in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, but she had numerous times in her life profound states of samadhi where there was no sign of any consciousness of the body or any consciousness of the outer world. So we can assume from that that she had the highest Advaitic experience. But though that may not be proof to all, there is more which we find in her life. For one thing, which again is not proof, but certainly a good indication. Swami Vivekananda came to her once and said that he wanted to he wanted to go back to the state that Sri Ramakrishna had closed for him, the Nirvikalpa state, which Sri Ramakrishna had said, you can't return to it until you finish your work. And Holy Mother said, just don't forget me. And Swami Vivekananda said, Mother, the knowledge which takes away the awareness of the Guru's feet is no knowledge at all. That's ignorance itself. And he went away. And then Mother said to the others, actually, there is a state where Guru, disciple, God, everything disappears and there's no differentiation whatsoever. And so she was speaking of the Advaitic experience. So again, you may not say, we can't say that that is positive proof that we can show to anyone that they will accept, but it is a strong indication. However, there is something even stronger, and that is her correspondence with her disciple, Swami Vimalananda. Swami Vimalananda took sannyasa from Swami Vivekananda. So he's included among the disciples of Swami Vivekananda, but he took mantra initiation from the Holy Mother. So he was also Mother's disciple. And of course, the mantra initiation is considered the root initiation. So he was primarily a disciple of the Holy Mother. He was one of those that went early to the Advaita ashrama at Mayavati in the Himalayas, which Swamiji had commissioned and had his disciples, Captain and Mrs. Sevier of England, to purchase and to establish with the help of his Indian disciple, Swami Swarupananda. Swami Swarupananda was the Swami in charge, and Captain and Mrs. Sevier were the ones who purchased and helped to establish the ashram. Captain Sevier died there. Swamiji had established the Advaita ashrama as a place for the practice and propagation of Advaita and Advaita alone, non-dual practice and propagation alone. When he went there for the first time after his last return from the West, he went straight to Mayavati, and he had come back from the West, cutting short his trip in Egypt, because he had a premonition that Captain Sevier was dying. And so he got on a ship, returned to India, got to Bellarmat, and got the news that Captain Sevier had died. And he went immediately. It was a long trip in those days especially, but he did leave immediately for Mayavati in the Himalayas. He got there to the Advaita ashrama, and he found, much to his shock and disappointment, that his disciples, Swami Vimalananda, Swami Virajananda especially, had established a shrine to Sri Ramakrishna, and they were doing daily puja. So Swami Vivekananda called them to a meeting 1 or 2 nights after he arrived, and expressed his great disappointment. He said that, I thought that at least there would be one place where the old man would not sit, meaning by that Sri Ramakrishna. Not because he disrespected Sri Ramakrishna and felt that he was unwelcome, but because he wanted one place, one ashram at least, that would be devoted to Advaita and Advaita alone, where he said, no mixing of the Advaita, no mixing of the Advaita practices or superstitions. I want this to be a place for Advaita alone. So even now there's no shrine. But at that time, they had established a shrine and they were doing daily puja. So Swamiji expressed his great disapproval, but he did not tell them, because it was contrary to his nature, he did not tell them, you must dismantle the shrine. And so Swami Virajananda, Swamiji's disciple and also Holy Mother's disciple, like Swami Vimalananda, Swami Virajananda immediately stopped, understanding Swamiji's sentiment. But Swami Vimalananda continued with the shrine and continued doing worship even after Swamiji had passed away, after another 1.5 years. But at that point, he wrote to Holy Mother and asked her advice, told her what had happened with Swamiji and that he was doing worship. And probably, I would guess, it's surely a guess, that's all it is, that he probably thought Mother would sympathize with him, because Mother herself did puja every day. She looked on Sri Ramakrishna as God himself. Sri Ramakrishna was her life, was her prana, her vital force, was everything to her. And so surely Mother would support him in doing the puja to Sri Ramakrishna. So he wrote, asking what to do. So Mother wrote back And she said that, of course, we're in Bengali, but she said, our Guru was all Advaita, meaning Sri Ramakrishna. He was all Advaita. And as you are his disciples, you are all also Advaitans. I may emphatically declare, she said in Bengali, Ami Jor Korea Bolite Pari, in Sadhu Bhasha, the formal way of writing at that time. I may emphatically declare that you are all certainly Advaitans. And she went on to say that Swamiji was correct in what he had done in establishing the Advaita Ashrama, and it should be kept as the Advaita Ashrama, as he wanted. And so she did not support Swami Vimalananda. Let me say here that Vimalanandaji was a great saint, a very saintly, a very pure and holy monk. So he was not a renegade, he was not a revolutionary, he was just devotional by nature at that time. But with Holy Mother's advice, of course, he dismantled the shrine. And that was the end of it from then till now at Mayavati. And so there, Holy Mother says that our Guru was all Advaita. Sri Ramakrishna was all Advaita. There are those who say that no, Sri Ramakrishna, actually, he was a Vishishta Advaita. There are those who say he was a Shakta Advaita. There are those who say many different things about what his philosophy was. But the Holy Mother said he was all Advaita. And as his disciples, you are all Advaitans, she said. So, to me, that leaves no doubt, and I didn't really have doubt to begin with, but doubting for the sake of others. But that to me leaves no doubt that she was an Advaitin and she had the Advaitic experience and she approved of it, because she approved fully of Swamiji's establishing an ashram where there would be nothing but the practice of Advaita. But then the question comes, how did she express it? If she had the experience, how did she express it? And that's a legitimate question. One might say that, well, she didn't need to express it. If she had it, she could have expressed herself purely in a devotional and dualistic way. Why? Because that we have on the authority of Sri Ramakrishna is what Sri Chaitanya did. The one considered an avatara, Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya. He said on his own authority, this was not from books, but from his identity with Sri Chaitanya, his realization of Sri Chaitanya. He said that Chaitanya had the knowledge of Advaita inside, and outside it was all devotion. He said that an elephant has two sets of teeth, the outer tusks, which are for fighting, and the inner teeth for enjoying its nourishment. And so Sri Chaitanya's inner teeth were the teeth of Advaita, where he enjoyed the knowledge of Advaita, non-dual experience within. And outside, he was all kirtan, singing, ecstasy, devotional ecstasy, and all of that. And so we see, continuing in the Chaitanya tradition, the Bengal Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that tradition has continued that Sri Chaitanya was a dualist. They don't accept that. They don't accept Advaita at all, and certainly not their leader and teacher and ideal. He could not have been an Advaita, but Sri Ramakrishna said he was. So, Holy Mother, okay, she had the experience of Advaita, the knowledge of Advaita, but did she teach it? Did she exemplify it? Did she illustrate it? And that's what I want to come to now. And so, how did she express it? One of my favorite verses of the Ashtavakra Samhita, which is one of my favorite texts and has been for the last 50 years, is Mai Ananda Maham Bodhav Ashcharyam Jiva Vichayaha Udyanti Gnandi Kelanti Pravishanti Swabhavataha. In me, the shoreless ocean of pure consciousness, the waves of individual selves arise, strike each other, play for a time, and then dissolve back into the ocean. In me, the ocean of infinite consciousness, the waves of individual selves, you and me, all beings, humans, plants, animals, bacteria, like waves rise, strike each other, that is, interact with each other, sometimes fighting, play for a time, and then they dissolve back into the infinite ocean of consciousness, which I am. That is, it was a statement of realization, and that actually was a statement of Janaka after he attained to his realization. After he was taught in the first chapter by Ashtavakra, by the second chapter, he had this experience. And so I would suggest, I can't prove it, but I would suggest, and I will try to support my suggestion, that Holy Mother had a similar experience to that of Ashtavakra, where she saw the whole world in the ocean of her own self, waves of individual selves rising, playing for a time, and going back into the ocean, which she was. She was the ocean. But how different was the expression of Holy Mother from that of King Janaka? King Janaka's expression was wonderful. And that may be what we more seek to do, because it seems more approachable than Holy Mother's, but not for everyone. But how different the expression of Holy Mother was. Not contradictory different. Different can mean something that contradicts something else. So this is true, and therefore that's not true. I don't mean that at all. Both are true. Both are the same experience, but different in expression. Because the non-dual truth has infinite modes of expression, which is one of the things that makes it so beautiful. So this impersonal realization of the whole universe existing within the ocean of her own consciousness, and waves of individual selves rising, playing within the ocean of her consciousness. This impersonal vision of herself as the reality, and everything within reality as waves on the ocean of her own being. But it led to a very different expression, that is, to an intensely personal, not in the sense of attachment, but an intensely personal relationship with each wave in the ocean of her own being, where she had an extremely personal, without attachment, but yet personal, relationship with everyone and with everything that she saw rising within the ocean of her own being. Ashtavakra says that I am within everything, Astamba Brahma Parayantam. I am within everything from Brahma, the creator, down to a clump of grass. That is, I see myself within everything, from Brahma, the creator, down to a blade of grass. Remember what I said yesterday about Swami Vivekananda saying that you are the ocean on which the waves of incarnations rise. And so that's what Ashtavakra is saying, that I exist within everything from Brahma down to a clump of grass. Brahmastamba Paryantam, a famous statement in Vedanta. Holy Mother, once she was talking to Kedar, her disciple. I don't remember whether it was in Jairambati or Koalpara, but it was in one of the two neighboring villages. And she was talking with Kedar, and nearby some villagers came and started worshiping the goddess, the village goddess Shashti, under a tree. And they were beating drums and beating cymbals and shouting, and religion in India can be quite loud. It's not like going into a Christian church. It can be quite loud, and this was quite loud. And Kedar was extremely bothered by it. And so he told them, chup kar, be quiet, shut up. And Holy Mother said, Kedar, I indeed am in all. Why do you get irritated? I am indeed in all. Why do you get irritated? Meaning I am in them also. These people who are making noise, why are you irritated? It's like what I told yesterday from the life of Sri Ramakrishna. When Totapuri was sitting with Sri Ramakrishna in front of their dhuni fire, a sacred fire built by sadhus, especially wandering sadhus, and a worker from the temple came and took a lit coal from the fire to light his chilam, his tobacco pipe. And Totapuri got extremely angry and started scolding the man for taking from my sacred fire, you're taking that for lighting a chilam. And Sri Ramakrishna laughed and said, so Brahman has come and has taken Brahman from Brahman and is lighting Brahman with it, and you get angry? meaning that you are one who have attained to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. You say that everything is Brahman, Brahman alone is real, and you're getting angry? And so this is similar to that, where Holy Mother said, Cater, I indeed am in all. Why do you get irritated? There are many beautiful stories from Holy Mother's life on this topic. There was the famous instance of Brahmachari Gyan. He figures largely in Holy Mother's life and reminiscences, Brahmachari Gyan. Holy Mother, Radhu, Holy Mother's niece, she had a pet cat, and the cat loved Holy Mother. And the Holy Mother, of course, cared for it because Radhu was a little girl, but it was considered Radhu's cat, and Mother took care of it. But Brahmachari Gyan, who most often was in Jairambati, he hated the cat, and he used to beat the cat sometimes also. So once when Holy Mother was ready to go to Calcutta, she was afraid that Gyan would not take care of the cat. And so she told him before leaving, Gyan, you should cook rice for the cat and feed it so that it doesn't go to the neighbors searching for food. Obviously concerned that the cat would become a bother to others, and also concerned for the health of the cat. So she said, you should cook rice for the cat and feed it so it doesn't go looking for food at other houses. But she knew that that would not be enough because Gyan hated the cat and used to beat it. So then she said, look here, Gyan, don't beat the cat, for I exist even in them, in the cats. Don't beat the cat because I exist even in them. So again, Mayananda Mahambodha Vascharya Jiva Vichaya Udyandi Ghanandi Kelanti Pravishanti Swabhavataha. Once Brahmachari Gagan was sitting on the veranda of Mother's house in Jairambati, and Holy Mother was sweeping the courtyard right in front of the veranda. And a beggar came calling outside the courtyard, came calling for alms. And Mother, of course, felt, well, I must go and give the beggar some alms as she's sweeping. And then she said to herself, I can't finish my duties even though I'm working through innumerable hands. I can't finish my duties even though I'm working through innumerable hands. So then Brahmachari Gagan, he was attracted by the extraordinarily soft and ethereal voice of the Holy Mother, such a sweet voice that she expressed this with, that I can't finish my duties even though I'm working through innumerable hands. So he looked up at Holy Mother, and she bent over and put one hand on her knee as she leaned over, holding the bloom. And then she said, look at the fun. I have only two hands, and here I speak of having infinite hands. Look at the fun. I said, I have only two hands, and yet I speak of having infinite hands, as she smiled. That's similar to what Swamiji said. Yesterday, I paraphrased Swamiji, but here is one of the quotes that says what I paraphrased yesterday. It is I who am eating in millions of mouths. How can I be hungry? It is I who am working through an infinite number of hands. How can I be inactive? It is I who am living the life of the whole universe. Where is death for me? Is not Mother's statement the same? Here I speak of having two hands. Here I have two hands, and yet I speak of working through innumerable hands. So an extraordinary statement from the Holy Mother. Now, of course, people can object, and many of you perhaps are objecting, that all of this was because Holy Mother was the Divine Mother herself. She meant she was working through innumerable hands because either she was Durga with 10 arms, though here she says through infinite hands, or infinite hands because she is the mother of the universe. And true, one can say that. One can object that when she said to Brahmachari Gyan that I am in the cats also, it was because she is the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is within everything. Yes, that may be true also. I won't deny that, and I won't argue against it. One may also say that when she said to Kedar, don't get irritated with the villagers making so much noise as they worship the goddess Shashti. because I am in them also, I am in all. That she was speaking as the goddess, who is in all, and as the goddess. But should we limit Holy Mother just to that? I will accept that level of interpretation and say, yes, good, and stay with that level of interpretation if it is meaningful to you. But we should never try to limit one as great as the Holy Mother or Sri Ramakrishna to such understanding. Once Swami Vivekananda was asked, do you believe that Sri Ramakrishna was an avatara, an incarnation? And the Swami replied, the word avatara, as it is usually understood, would be an insult to Sri Ramakrishna. He was far greater than that. And he also said there's the famous incident where he told Swami Yogananda, the great Swami Yogananda, who is himself an illumined soul and disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He scolded Swami Yogananda and said, don't try to limit Sri Ramakrishna. I will break all of your limitations. You want to say to Sri Ramakrishna, oh, what a beautiful nose you have. Oh, how wonderful you are. But Sri Ramakrishna was much greater than you have understood. And I will not allow people to put him in boxes. And so we shouldn't do that with Holy Mother as well. The mind tries to understand things by defining. But what does it mean to define? It means to delimit. To set the finite limits of something is the way we define it. It's this, it's not that, but it's this. And so we say Holy Mother was an incarnation. She was the Divine Mother. And there we have her in our pretty little box. And we put the box on the altar and we offer flowers where she sits safely and where we feel satisfied with our understanding. But no, Mother doesn't sit in our boxes. She accepts our worship. She sits willingly on our altars and accepts our worship. But she is much bigger than that. She goes outside of that. Swami Vivekananda said that when Jesus said, I and my Father are one, he meant that the nature of the self is one with God the Father. The Christian interpretation and the most obvious interpretation of Jesus's words were, I and my Father are one. I, Jesus, and my Father are one. He's not talking about you. He's saying, I, Jesus, and my Father are one. But Swamiji broke down that limitation also in our understanding and said, no, I and my Father in one means that the individual and the infinite are one in the Advaitic sense. Why? Because, as Sri Ramakrishna said, the difference between an incarnation and an ordinary soul is a difference of power, not a difference of essence. The jiva, a jiva means an individual like you and me, and the incarnation, the difference is one of power, not one in reality. That we are the same reality as the incarnation of God. It's just that we have very limited power. Even if we attain to illumination, we have limited power to help and inspire and to transform others, whereas the incarnation comes within tremendous power, which sets in movement, sets in motion a movement, a wave of spirituality that sweeps over the world and lasts for millennia. That's the difference in the incarnation. A great soul comes, a jiva like us attains to illumination, full illumination, and we inspire a number of disciples. We inspire a number of people. And then for some centuries, perhaps, people remember us. They read books of our teachings and so forth, and remember us. But the incarnation continues to illumine people for centuries and centuries and centuries after they have passed into the final samadhi. And so that's the difference. But it's not a difference in being. We are the same Atman that the incarnation is. And so a person like Holy Mother or Sri Ramakrishna lives at different levels, and they express themselves at different levels. She was the Divine Mother. She was the Divine Mother herself. And that is how she continues to inspire people now, not just as an example in books, but she continues her work now, uplifting and inspiring people. on a larger scale than when she was alive, because now she's become universal. When she was alive, the few could go to her and just in her presence be completely transformed. That opportunity is disappeared with her disappearance from the earth, but she continues her work, and now she continues it all over the world. And so even if you accept her as the Divine Mother, that doesn't prevent you from seeing the nature of her experience and what it means to us. The difference between the incarnation in Hinduism, at least the incarnation as understood in Advaita Vedanta, and the incarnation as understood in a tradition like Christianity, is that the incarnation is not essentially different from us. The difference is one of power, but not one of being, of who they are. There's a difference in how they come into the world, how they live in the world because of their greater power and insight, and because of the fact that they didn't come into the world with a load of past karma that they have to work through. And because of that, they come with tremendous power. They come from the knowledge of their oneness with God, and they live in that consciousness. We strive to come to that consciousness, and if we are fortunate, by the end of our lives, we have attained to some degree of that, and if we're very fortunate, we've attained to the full knowledge of our identity with God. But the incarnation comes with great power, unlike us, because of the way that they come into the world. But it doesn't change the fact. Jesus is considered in Christianity to be unique. Jesus alone is God and man. We are man, God is God, and Jesus is the bridge who, by believing in him, he connects us back to God. He doesn't turn us into God because that's impossible, but he connects us to God through love and through faith. But no, in Hinduism, and especially in the Advaita tradition, the incarnation is not differentiated in his being, as I said. So, the Holy Mothers, and I will open up to questions in just a moment here for the rest of this second part of my session. The expression of Mother's Advaita was her motherhood, her view of all beings as her own children, her view that everything. There's a beautiful example that I love to quote in other contexts when speaking of karma yoga or whatever, where there was a woman, a villager in Jairambati, who was sweeping Mother's courtyard at her house and Mother's house as a service to Mother. And the woman was an old woman, though I should watch my words because she was only 60. I'm a lot older than she is. But she was conventionally considered an old woman. She was sweeping the courtyard. Mother was sitting there in on the veranda. And when the woman finished sweeping, she took the broom and threw it carelessly into the corner. And Holy Mother said, "My dear, the broom serves us so well. Even it deserves respect. You go and salute the broom and put it carefully in its proper place. It deserves respect." And so this old woman went and saluted the broom and put it carefully in its place and said, "I'm 60 years old, but I never heard of saluting a broom before." But you see, Mother, she saw that the broom is to be respected because there she also is in that. She is in all beings and she is in everything. And that's what the knowledge of Advaita brings us. When we haven't realized it, then that becomes a practice of trying to live in that consciousness as if it's true, because I've understood it to be true. I've understood it to be true. And so again, Holy Mother shows us through her motherhood a unique expression of Advaita. You may not, again, accept that it was an expression of Advaita, but I will still hold to my firm conviction that it was. It was an expression of Advaita, as well as her expression of divine motherhood, but the two are not separate, because we're not separate from God either. In Advaita, I shouldn't say just in Hinduism, because Hinduism is a vast spectrum of belief. But in Advaita, There's no ultimate separation between us and God. There's no ultimate separation between us and the incarnation. And so Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna were exemplars. Yes, we can't expect to do exactly as they did, because we don't have the power, and we can't assume to have that power until we actually have it. But everything that they did has meaning for us. Everything that they did is an example to us if we understand it within its proper context for us. Understand where they were when they did and said and realize certain things, realize where I am now, and see what does that mean to me now. But it does mean something to me now. It means a tremendous amount to me. So Holy Mother's expression was her motherhood. Mai ananda mahambodha vascharyam jiva vichaya udyanti gandhanti kelanti pravishanti swabhavadaha. Me, the infinite ocean of consciousness. The waves of individual beings arise, strike each other, play for a time. These who are my children. These are my children. I am the ocean of love. And the wave that rises in the ocean of love is the object of my love. I, who am the eternal subject, am also that which is beyond subject and object. The object is me also. The ocean is love, and I am love. And when the wave of love rises, and I am in subject-object consciousness, even though I know the non-dual truth, and I'm not speaking for Swami Atmarupananda, a fool like me, I'm speaking from the what one like that would experience. I, who am the ocean of love, when a wave rises within me of love, I, who am operating through the mind and seeing subject and object, but who know that I am both subject and object, then my relationship to the waves rising with me is a relationship of infinite love. And that is the way Holy Mother approached everyone, the way she approached saints and sinners, the high and the low. All were her children because she saw sameness everywhere, which Sri Krishna says in the 5th chapter of the Gita, is the sign of illumination. It's a sign of realization, to see sameness everywhere. Swami Vivekananda used to teach, I don't teach humility. I teach samadarshitva, same-sightedness. That is, humility says I'm lower than everyone else. Same-sightedness says we are all the same reality. And that was the vision of Mother. So she said, always remember that you have a mother. She is that mother. And in the next session, I will deal with the sadhana which she left for us. So now let me see how much time I have left until the hour. We've got 10 minutes left. So if there are any questions.
Swami, how does Advaita Vedanta explain the avatar?
Yes, how does Advaita Vedanta explain the avatar? Good question. And it's always difficult in Hinduism, and it's the great virtue of Hinduism. It's always difficult to say that a particular philosophy has this particular explanation of any one thing. So you'll find that different Advaitins have different views of the avatar. Generally, there are those Advaitins like Shankaracharya, who accepts the doctrine of the avatara. His introduction to the Bhagavad Gita is beautiful. It's worth reading, worth studying, because there he speaks of the incarnation of Sri Krishna and what it means. And so, as I said, an Advaitin like Shankaracharya, or like Sri Ramakrishna or Swami Vivekananda, or even a little insignificant person like me, sees the incarnation as one who comes from the absolute, who comes from the infinite, having knowing themselves to be the infinite. They come into this world knowingly, and they assume a human identity. That's what Swami Vivekananda said about Sri Ramakrishna, that it's an assumed human identity, that they come for the welfare of others. And Sri Krishna himself says that, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya taratmanam srajamyam. From age to age, when religion is in decline and irreligion is rising, then I body myself forth for the protection of the good, for the destruction of evil. I come again and again in every age. So Shankaracharya and such Advaitins, including Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Holy Mother, they accept that God incarnates. And that's why a Hindu can accept Jesus as an incarnation, because seeing him, one sees in him the signs of an incarnation. We accept Jesus from the standpoint of Advaita, not that he was unique, but from the standpoint that he was born into this world with a mission for the uplift of humanity, and came to fulfill that, knowing his identity with the divine, but sharing human nature, not as a unique example, because human nature is divine nature. There are others like Totapuri, and so there are the other Advaitins who ignore the incarnation, and that's perfectly legitimate. They don't care about the incarnation, because what does that have to do with self-knowledge? I want to know who I am. I don't need to know who the elephant is, the rat, the cat, the devil, and the incarnations, not to equate the incarnation with all of that. But for them, the question is not who is an incarnation and how do I worship them? The question is, who am I and how do I find self-knowledge? That's perfectly legitimate. You don't need to believe in incarnations. You don't need to worship incarnations. You don't need to have anything to do with the incarnations if you don't want to. But you can be an Advaitin and be fully devoted to the incarnation as well.
Swami, can you speak to Sarada Devi's veiling power, how she veiled her experiences as a power?
Yes, that's a good question, and an unusual question. I've never had that question posed to me before. So thank you. It's always, I love question and answers for that very reason, that I have to think of things in a different way from the way I've answered questions before. So Swami Vivekananda, Swami Premananda, and Sri Ramakrishna himself, they spoke of Holy Mother's tremendous veiling power. Now, yesterday I spoke of the veiling power of ignorance, which keeps us from knowing the truth. So here we're not talking about that, the avarana shakti, the deluding power of Maya. Because in Holy Mother, you don't find the deluding power, you find the illuminating power. She was the embodiment of vidya shakti, the Maya of, or Vidya Maya, the Maya of knowledge, not the Maya of ignorance. And yet, she veiled her own spiritual power. She veiled her own identity as the divine, and that's why we find her life so simple. Her life was so simple. She lived in the midst of family, and not an easy family, a very, very difficult family that she lived in the midst of, with all kinds of problems. And yet she manifested this high spirituality. So she kept her spirituality veiled. She kept her identity veiled. It was only rarely that she would reveal her identity, as in the interesting example I quoted where she says, here I have only two hands, and yet I speak of working through infinite hands. Those were very rare occurrences. And so that's said to be a sign of her tremendous power. Sri Ramakrishna said of Swami Vivekananda, that if you see a single tear falling from Swami Vivekananda's eye, know that a huge earth-shaking storm a spiritual storm has passed through him, because he's such a great container. He said, when an elephant enters into a small pool of water, it splashes water everywhere, and perhaps empties most of the water out of the pool. But when the elephant enters into the ocean, it makes hardly a ripple. It makes no difference whatsoever to the ocean. And so he said, when great spiritual experiences come into the lives of a small container, a person who has little capacity, it shakes them to their foundations. And it often can destroy the health of a person. if they have a large spiritual experience, it can destroy the health of a person. But he said that Swami Vivekananda was like the ocean. So when the elephant of spiritual experience would enter into him, you wouldn't see it. So that was even more true of the Holy Mother. Well, I can't say that. I'm not one to judge levels, but let's say it was at least as true of the Holy Mother. That her ability to hide her ecstasies, which is well known. If you read her life from the time she was in Dakshineshwar, where she asked Yoginma to please ask Sri Ramakrishna to give her ecstasy. She said, everyone's entering into ecstasy, but please tell him that I would like to have ecstasy too. And then Yoginma found out there was having, but just keeping it hidden. And so from that time in Dakshineshwar throughout her life, she kept her spirituality hidden because she was such a great container. The idea is, and it's the secret of tapasya, that expression is giving out energy. Containment is keeping energy within. When I have a desire and I go out and experience the fruit of my desire, there's no tapasya involved. If I have a desire and consciously, not from repression or suppression, but consciously and willfully for a higher purpose, control that desire, then I gain in spiritual power. So Holy Mother, by veiling the expression of her spirituality, she gained tremendous power. That, again, Sri Ramakrishna, his close disciples, his circle of close disciples were all extraordinary illumined souls. Holy Mother's disciples were illumined by the Holy Mother, but they weren't of the caliber of Sri Ramakrishna's disciples. Why? Was it because Sri Ramakrishna was great and Holy Mother wasn't? No, it's because Mother gave to everyone who came to her. Sri Ramakrishna was extremely selective. There was a good reason for that, but he was extremely selective. But Holy Mother gave to everyone and gave freely. And so that's why there was a difference in the Mother's disciples, because she accepted all who came to her, whereas Sri Ramakrishna kept it limited to a few people. I think my time is up now. Hello?
Sorry about that. You have 1 minute to respond to this question.
Okay.
But it arose as an inspiration from your talk. What is the science of mantra diksha? Is it live transmission from guru to disciple?
Yes, and that is why getting a mantra out of a book, just selecting one from a text, you can get books that have all kinds of mantras, but that will not have the power. I'll speak of our tradition, but this is true wider than our tradition, but I'll speak in terms of our tradition to make it more concrete. Sri Ramakrishna realized a number of mantras in his samadhi. That is, he saw these mantras in high states of consciousness and saw them as identical with the state of consciousness, with a particular deity or a state of consciousness. He taught of those, he taught 8 of those mantras to Holy Mother. And Holy Mother, well, actually, we don't know exactly how many he taught to her, but she taught 8 of those mantras given to her by Sri Ramakrishna, taught 8 of those mantras to Swami Virajananda, and those have been handed down. And she taught how to make mantras out of, it was actually 8 bijas, the bija mantra, and how to make those into mantras. And so the mantras in our tradition have come from Sri Ramakrishna's samadhi itself, and have been passed down in a continuous lineage. And in our tradition, one can't just start initiating people because I want to be a guru. One has to go to Belarmat and be empowered to give mantras. And so the mantras that are given in our tradition are coming directly from Sri Ramakrishna through Holy Mother and through a lineage of authorized teachers. And so, yes, when you get initiation from an authorized teacher, then you are getting an empowered mantra. You're not just getting a sound. But usually it takes for most of us slow learners, it takes a lifetime to learn that. It takes a lifetime to learn what we've gotten. But we have gotten an extraordinary treasure, and we should know it even before we realize what it is. We should know that we have an extraordinary treasure that will in itself lead us to illumination because it's empowered.